I'm talking to my good friend, Sarah Jaffe, independent journalist. You can find her at adifferentclass.com. Let's actually move on to another horrific story because we have a lot of them to cover here.
There are so many of
There's
them.
so many. You actually have an update on a story that you did a little while ago about payroll debit cards. And if people haven't actually heard about this, describe what exactly is this, because this seems crazy that this is the way some people are getting paid right now.
Yeah.
Just give the rundown of just what the idea of people actually getting paid by debit cards.
So this is something that I first reported on these debit cards, having heard of them being used to distribute unemployment benefits. In, I think, 41 states now, they're used to distribute your unemployment. But now businesses are using them to pay their workers. So what happens is, instead of getting a paycheck, some of your listeners probably have experienced this. Instead of getting a paycheck, you get a prepaid debit card from a specific bank. You get the one in this particular case was from J.P. Morgan, but Bank of America does it. Lots of banks do it. And along with your debit card, which is preloaded with your paycheck, you get a list of fees. And you have to pay ATM fees if you're, using an out-of-network ATM, just like with your regular bank card. In some cases, there was a withdrawal fee for every time you took out money. There's an inactivity fee in some cases. I mean, it's ridiculous. But what it actually is it's cost-shifting the cost of payroll services onto the customer. So the bank is giving a sweet deal to the business or the state in question because the customer, by paying all these fees, is actually the one paying for the cost of the service.
So, what are some examples other than that of companies that are using this? Do you what are the companies that are actually doing this and paying their workers this way?
The story that sort of broke this into the national consciousness was a story of a lawsuit by a worker at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. Her name is Natalie Gunn Shannon, and then when she got this payroll debit card, she went to her boss and said, I don't live anywhere near a J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. Can I get this on a paper check, or can I get direct deposit? And they told her no, that she could only get it on the card. That was how they were getting paid. Meanwhile, the managers were paid by direct deposit. So that says something right there about what they assume about the workers who do their, their sort of entry-level line cooking jobs at a fast food restaurant versus the people who are managing them. And so she sued. Because
good for
she
her.
did not want to be paying. Because, when you work at McDonald's, you make $7.25, $7.35, $7.45 an hour, maybe $8 an hour if you live in a state that has a reasonable minimum wage. You can't afford $1.50 off the top of your check because your check is small to begin with.
Yeah.
Right? You really can't afford to give that away. And so she sued, and this story broke, and I wrote about it in these times, looked into the use of these cards. There's actually a bill in the New York State Assembly and Senate right now looking at legalizing the widespread use of these cards. And there's not a whole lot that you can do about it in a lot of cases. There are some states that have laws that you can't be charged a fee to get your pay, and so there's a requirement that they not charge you for your first deposit or your first withdrawal or your first couple of withdrawals. But really, these are out there, and they're being used in a lot of places. I spoke to a woman who is a graduate student who gets her stipend distributed on one of these cards. So again, it's just another way that the big banks are getting more money off of working class people.
It's crazy. Just the whole idea, how are you supposed to pay your rent with a debit card? I mean, paying your bills with a debit card. There's all these things that normally that costs money. That actually doing these type of transfers it costs actual cash. It reminds me of the whole idea of on a very large scale, the whole company store kind of thing. You know what I mean? Where you're getting store credits essentially, and then they can charge you essentially whatever you want. It's obviously not that exactly, but that's what's popping into my head.
Yeah, no, a lot of people have made that analogy. It's sort of similar, but it's the company bank, right? Instead of the company store. So the way they will sell this to you, the way the banks will sort of gloss over this, is that they say it's better for people who are quote-unquote unbanked, people who do not make enough money to keep a bank account open, people who, for various reasons, will not don't have easy access to regular banking, that it's better for them than like payday lending, which payday lending is god awful, right? This is definitely true. But the difference between these two things, where they charge you a fee to get access to your money, is of degree. It's not of kind, right? It's not fundamentally different for JP Morgan to take $1.50 off your paycheck for an ATM withdrawal than it is for the payday lender to charge you $1 per $100 that you get from your check, right? In each case, somebody is siphoning your money for you to get access to it. So, if we really want to make sure that the unbanked have access to their money, we should perhaps think about regulating the banking industry. Or perhaps, as your friend and mine, once again, Dave Dayan, wrote about recently, we should bring back postal banking, which I think is a wonderful idea. That the post office can also serve as a public interest bank.
Yeah, talk about that, because I know you didn't. I know Dave wrote it and stuff like that, but I love that idea too.
I should really let him do it because he did a wonderful job writing this piece. It's at Pacific Standard, and I really don't know that much about it other than, yeah, why not? That the post office is, the post office is one of most people's only points of interaction with the government.
Right.
And it's almost universally understaffed and terrible a lot of the times because, Republicans have been trying to kill it for years. But, yeah, why not make it a place where you can also get access to your money that is actually, funded by the government in the public interest and not funded by people who want your money so that they can gamble with it, which is what banks actually do.
Yeah. No, it really is. It's sick to think about this. And it's sick that and again, it's not surprising that you have these giant banks who see these payday lenders who are, granted wrong and awful and do horrible things. So like, instead of thinking, well, how can we make this thing better? Like, I want to get in on that. I want to get me some of that payday lending money, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, this is right. Like I said, it's another way to offload all the costs onto the worker. It's another way that being poor is just getting more expensive. That things that are free for people who have lots of money are incredibly expensive for people who don't. And even things that are free for, like, your average sort of person making, $40,000 a year are really expensive for people who are making less. But so the reason that I'm writing about this again, I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm writing a little update this morning because there's news. The McDonald's that Natalie Gunshannon sued has said that it will pay its workers give the option of direct deposit or a paper check as well as the payroll cards. She is not dropping her lawsuit as far as I know. She quit before calling a lawyer, which good for her. But that New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman is looking into these cards and what actually happens and whether workers are getting ripped off. And as I said, there are these bills in New York State that people are fighting right now, that the state AFL-CIO is leading the fight against making these things more widespread. And so we will see what happens. It definitely.
But so actually, because of the lawsuit, McDonald's actually is offering.
These McDonald's franchises.
Franchises,
so
right?
The company has, the company didn't return my request for comment at all. I think they told the New York Times that they have no say over how their franchisees pay their workers, which is crap. McDonald's can dictate the diameter of a French fry. They can dictate how the workers get treated. They don't want to.
Right.
This is a point that's been made a lot by the workers in the fast food organizing campaign, right? Like, if these big corporations wanted their workers treated better, they could do it. They don't. And they don't because they don't actually care, and they would rather have the profits in their pocket than, make sure that people could, eat.